Superyachts in the 21st century are more than ever globetrotting to new and exciting destinations around the world. However, this is happening during an age of piracy. When Somali criminals can obtain weapons at their local market, guests and crew of these multi-million-dollar vessels need protection. But is arming crew really the answer? But before you start making your all-time weapons bucket list to purchase for your superyacht, you need to look at the laws surrounding keeping such weapons on board.
Plasma rifle in the 40-watt range.
Hey, just what you see, pal.
You may be thinking that to prepare for such eventualities and to make sure you are more secure, or at least feel more secure, having weapons on board is the answer. It's a common misconception that outside of territorial waters there are no laws at sea. In international waters, we are governed by the maritime law. Specifically, we're talking about the United National Convention on the Law of the Sea. At sea, in international waters, which is anything beyond 12 miles from the nearest coastline, but more clearly as anything beyond 24 miles of the nearest coast, the law to be enforced on the boat is the law of the boat's flag of origin. So in other words, a superyacht flying, for example, a United States flag is subject to the laws of the United States. Legally, this means that the ship is registered to the country whose flag it flies and carries paperwork to that effect. So a vessel carrying the American flag in international waters may carry any firearms allowed by US federal law, as well as legal ammunition to go with it. This, however, is only true in international waters. Obviously, a ship must go to port sometime. Once you enter the territorial waters of a foreign nation, you must obey their laws, as one captain found out in Mexico. The captain of a US flagged vessel thought that he'd followed the proper procedures, as he did declare the weapons to Mexican customs, but he did not obtain a permit from the Ministry of Defense before he entered the country. The yacht was seized for 4 months, and the captain spent that time in prison. Some countries don't allow entry with a weapon on board at all, or require their own protocols in handling weapons. For example, firearms must be declared on arrival to any port in Italy, and non-declaration means imprisonment. Most European countries will seize any firearms and hold them until you depart. In Italy, your weapons will be seized and removed by Italian authorities until you leave the country. If it's your plan to sail down the Italian coast, you will have to return to the initial port once completed to collect your weapons, as they will not deliver them to your final port of call. The same thing will happen in the UK, unless you have a safe on board which can be sealed for the duration of the visit. The safe will also be checked before departure to ensure that it is still sealed. Captain Herb Magny, who used to carry a gun and knows how to use them, is not an advocate for firearms on board yachts. In general, when you come to an area and you declare your guns, you either have to lock them up or give them to the local officials. Chances of getting them back are slim, and you are looked at suspiciously for bringing guns into a new country. Yachtsmen visiting Fiji must also declare all weapons, then hand these weapons over to authorities for the duration of the port stay, or risk a prison sentence. They then need to notify port officials of their time of departure so that the weapons can be returned 1 hour prior. Firearms also will be held by customs for the duration of a yacht stay in the Cayman Islands, unless the vessel is fitted with a safe that can be sealed. Any vessel carrying weapons will not be cleared by authorities until the weapons have been dealt with, meaning potential huge delays each time you arrive in a country. And nobody from that vessel will be allowed shore leave until the ship is clear. Veteran Captain Ted Spooth said, "It's very simple. I am an advocate of guns and trained people to use them on board yachts. However, the overriding factor is we travel into too many different countries with too many different laws concerning firearms. It is too dangerous legally to have weapons on board. I do not and have not carried weapons on board for about 15 years. Given terrorism, criminals and piracy, nations should make vessels exempt from local laws. Permits should be issued with proper training, but this is unlikely to happen, I think. There are times when firearms and, more importantly, armed security are critical, such as sailing through the Gulf of Aden. The last decade has seen a massive increase in piracy in this area, so much so that an international armada of countries' navies have patrolled these seas since around 2009. Captain Ben Marshall of the Red Dragon is unequivocal. I would not go through the Gulf area without armed security. I've never had any problems in port. So long as the weapons are correctly registered and declared, no one bats an eyelid. They think you're being sensible. In my own experience going through the Gulf of Aden and Persian Gulf, we did have armed security on board, and they were a company that we contacted, which the name of I don't remember, but a company we hired to come on board. They brought on weapons. They were all ex-special forces from different countries, New Zealand, UK, and they were all very professional. They did a briefing with the whole crew. All modern vessels now, they have something called a citadel, and it's basically a last stand where the crew will go once the alarm is raised that they've been attacked by pirates. And it's usually a room that is secured, and it has its own water supply, and it has usually has some sort of communications. So once you get in there, you can call for help if you haven't already done so. All vessels now have something called SSAS, which is the Ship Security Alert System, and it uses satellite communications. And basically, if the vessel is attacked, they have switches on in various different locations where you press that button and it automatically sends a signal to UK MCA, and basically you can have a list of 5 different locations where this message can be sent to say that you're actually being attacked. And it's not like you don't have to type out an email, it's just you press this button and this message gets sent out. And in this message it has the name of the vessel, the location, the GPS location of the vessel, and all various different information, so they can look up the vessel and find out who's on board and all that kind of stuff. So we sailed through the Persian Gulf, as I said. The guys told us that no vessel that had gone over 20 knots had ever been stopped. That was at the time, this was in like 2013, I think it was. And so we were capable of doing over 20 knots. So we just blasted through there at 21, 22 knots. And we decided to build our own gun, a fake gun of course, but we built this gun, we fitted it to the bow of the ship, and it was quite convincing. Well, after I did a video last year, which I touched on this subject, and I mentioned about firearms on board yachts, there was a lot of comments in the comments section, and some of them quite smart comments, quite intelligent comments, some of them not so much. One comment from a chap saying that he sailed frequently all around the world and never went anywhere without firearms ever. And then he had a back and forth with a couple of people in that comment, and basically he was saying that there were suggestions that to prevent you from being identified as carrying these weapons, that you should just wrap them in a bag and throw them over the side of the vessel tied to a cord, and that way they would never find them. But the people that come on board, the authorities that come on board vessels, they know all the tricks. When they come on board, I've been on vessels when they've come on for inspections and searches, and they've been on for 6 hours and they've gone through everything. They also have the ability to bring on X-ray machines, and the equipment they've got is incredible, and they find this stuff. And if you smuggle weapons into any country, you will be arrested. In 2015, the 26-meter yacht Mia was seized in the Bahamas for undeclared weapons found during a routine search. The weapons found were a Springfield Armory 45 caliber automatic Colt pistol with 105 rounds and one Glock 199mm pistol with 74 rounds. The 10 guests on board Mia were arrested by Bahamian Defense Force Marines and escorted to the capital, Nassau, where they were handed over to the Bahamas Customs. It's not a solution to hide your weapons. The main point, the reason why I said most of these yachts don't carry these weapons is because it's just the practicalities of it. That going into a new country, even if you've got all the paperwork done and you've got the weapons in a safe and everything like that, you get into that country, you have to then wait for the authorities to come. I've seen vessels escorted by naval vessels when they've reported having weapons on board. So they don't take this lightly. And it can take a whole day just to get cleared, because they want to come on, you've declared your weapons, they come on and then they do a full search of that vessel. And also there's an element of suspicion once you do declare that you have weapons as well. There is a story that has circulated, I've even seen it in tabloid newspapers, about Abramovich having anti-missile systems on his yacht and stuff like that.
Here is a story to float your boat. Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich is adding to his yacht collection. It's called the Eclipse, and it's about 560 feet long. It sports several features you won't usually find at your local dock: bulletproof glass, a missile defense system, and an anti-paparazzi laser shield.
Well, it's not true. You could never get clearance. Can you imagine an anti-missile system is a missile system, right? So anything that fires to intercept missiles, it's firing missiles. And there's no way a civilian vessel would get clearance in countries with those kinds of things on board, those kinds of pyrotechnics on board. So the idea that they have this is nonsense. Another comment on that video was a good friend of mine was the boat captain for a billionaire, and they carried several firearms in a hidden locker on his yacht. Well, first of all, that's hearsay. It's anecdotal. There's no, it's my friend said this. Well, you know what? People say a lot of things. Now, if that was the case and they had a hidden locker, it's only a matter of time before that's found. Also, if you work on a super yacht and there's a hidden locker with firearms on, all of the crew will know about this locker. So what will happen is eventually, when a crew member is dismissed from that vessel, most likely he's going to call the authorities and say, hey, I know of a yacht that has hidden weapons on board, and that boat will be seized, and the captain will go to prison, and the owner will go to prison if he's on board when it gets seized. So this idea that there's hidden weapons is it's unrealistic. Okay guys, I'm going to round up here. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please be sure to put any comments in the comments section. Let's discuss it there. If you've got any experience on a super yacht that had weapons on board, or any vessel, also put your comments down below. And if you've got any questions that have come up because of this video, let me know, and I'll catch up with you soon. Alright guys, bye bye.